Welcome to PeopleTech, the podcast of WorkforceAI.news. I'm Mark Pfeffer. Today I'm joined by Pete Tiliakos, Principal Analyst and Managing Partner at 3Sixty Insights. They've just launched a survey of payroll practitioners. The goal is to get a look at the realities of payroll and what's going on in practitioners' heads. He'll give us details of the survey and talk about what comes next on this edition of PeopleTech. Hey Pete, good to see you. Tell me about the survey you just launched.
So yeah, we just launched a very, very important survey, really one that I think is first of its kind. We've launched what I'm calling the Payroll Profession Confidence Survey, which is going to lead to the Payroll Profession Confidence Index. And yeah, that survey is really very different than what we've seen in the past, right? A lot of the surveys in the past have been very focused on operational metrics, right? Very focused on sort of lead generation type results, finding out, what people have, what sort of size of operation, and challenges they're dealing with, and what could possibly be sold to them, right? What next piece of technology or service could be provided to them is largely the goal of those surveys. I had certainly been shaping some of those for vendors in the marketplace, working with the payroll org and doing some of that work, and recognized that one of the things we weren't doing in any of these surveys, to at least a large enough extent to really know what was going on, was sort of test the sentiment and the how are you doing, how are you feeling sort of element of payroll, and understand what the mindset of the practitioner today is. No area so far has been free of a loss of talent, and payroll is certainly not been immune to that same challenge. So wanting to get a really better understanding of what's really going on in payroll, what impact they are or aren't having, how they're being perceived and being supported, and what we can do to support them better over the long term is really the goal here.
So what do you think that this is going to tell us, broadly speaking? What kind of things are you hoping to find out?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I've been asked that a few times. I mean, honestly, I'm going into this with a very open mind, as we should with any sort of scientific, analysis. I believe what we're going to hear is that payroll is still not being cared for in a way or valued in a way that it should be. I hope we don't hear that, but I think that's what we will learn. And what I'm hoping to do, if nothing else, is come away with at least a narrative that says this is the reality of payroll, both for the practitioner and for the future of the profession. This is the reality of what maybe they could be doing and how they could be impacting the organization from a strategic perspective or a value add perspective and an ROI standpoint. And so I'm hoping that we'll be able to at least shine a light on that reality and start shaping a narrative that educates C-suites and educates those not in payroll as to what really goes on and what value they can have. And I hope in at least in some way it's giving the entire industry a voice.
So what's the value of that, and to who? I mean, I can see where the information could benefit leaders or executives who pay attention to it, but do you think it'll help payroll in ways besides awareness?
Yeah, I do. I think it's going to give us the opportunity to have some real data. And look, we're going out to all of the payroll associations around the world. We're putting this in the hands of hopefully every practitioner everywhere in every continent. We want to get a good representation to find out what's going on. And I think what it can do is provide, again, a benchmark year over year. This isn't something we're going to do once. And this will evolve, right? It's a baseline year. We want to really understand where we are. Where are we as a profession? Where are we headed? How are we feeling about that? And are we in a position to do more, or are we doing as much as we can? And we need, what do we need to make that better? And so what I'm hoping we'll come away with is, again, a good baseline set of information that we can shed a light on what the value of payroll can be, how they can be more successful, and how they can be elevated to be given the opportunity to achieve that. And so what I hope we can do again is just come away with a good baseline knowledge of how are we doing in payroll, what's the opportunities that we have, where are we doing well, where are we struggling, and then begin to build off of that. And I'm hoping that's going to mean more research into different areas. I'd love to get into the mindset of some of the leadership around the organization to see how they perceive payroll, and get some of that understanding, so we can maybe bridge that executive suite with the or executive viewpoint with the payroll viewpoint, and bring those two together to do better business outcomes for their organization. So I really hope there's if nothing else, it gets people talking about what can be possible in payroll.
Do you have in mind any data points,
Mhm.
or certain things you think you need to get into to give you that kind of information?
Yeah, well, we're asking a lot of things, right? We're asking about the cultural aversion to payroll and how they're treated, right? We're asking things. One of the things we're digging into that was very important was what the relationships are like for payroll in other, what champions and partners they feel they have in the various departments in their organization. One of the key things we've asked in this study is, the perception of how invested your leadership is culturally in seeing payroll elevated and seeing payroll be more than just a processor, and how much they're actually investing to match that. I did a podcast on this with my partner Julie, where we talked about the difference in an organization putting money on the table and an organization being invested in seeing payroll treated differently and elevated and engaged in a more proactive advisory kind of way. So there's a lot of data points here we've asked. This has been very calculated. We spent a lot of time preparing this. We brought in a lot of perspectives from various thought leaders around the space. We went to the Payroll org and got a number of their leaders to help us. And we really did shape this, again, by payroll, for payroll. And all of these data points, every piece and part of this survey is going to be very critical to giving us that exact thing, right? Those data points we need to tell a story.
So what led you to dive into this in such detail?
Yeah.
Was there any particular trend that you've seen, or were you hearing things from people out in the field, practitioners, that something was amiss and you wanted to identify it? Or
Yeah.
can you talk me through your thought process?
Yeah, this has probably been almost 2 years in the making, and I'll tell you, I was saying this on my podcast. I feel called to do this. I was a former practitioner. I later became a consultant. I've helped sell and market, the solutions in the marketplace to help people with transformation. And now I'm an industry analyst who researches it and certainly brings a viewpoint to the vendors that are creating the modern solutions out there and help shape that. And I just saw that the way that we're still, I guess the really core motivator for me is I'm tired of payroll being less than. I'm tired of the attitude towards it, that it's so simple and it's so irrelevant, and it's no big deal, right? It's just checks being printed in the basement. And the reality of it is it's a considerably different world than that. It is employee experience, it is risk management, it is strategy execution, right? No merger and acquisition happens without payroll. No major comp cycle happens without payroll. There's almost nothing that goes on in the organization that doesn't trickle down to payroll. And the idea that it's sort of being drug along and kept alive, if you will, versus being invested in, I think is a major disadvantage for companies out there trying to compete and be as agile as they can. They're only going to be as agile as their payroll department is, and the reality of it is that we need to start looking at these tremendous professionals that are in this world as very skilled strategic advisors to the business. They have immense data, they have very rich skills, and they have a work ethic that is almost unmatched in the organization, in my opinion. They pull the rabbit out of the hat every week, and we need to start shining a light on what they're doing and giving them the support and the help that they need in order to be the best they can be, because ultimately they're going to drive better business outcomes for the business. So for me personally, this is all about shining a light on payroll, really lifting up the industry and trying to help tell their story with my platform.
Something you just said I wanted to ask you about, that essentially you said an efficient and a good payroll
Yeah.
function can drive better business outcomes for the business. What kind of better outcomes are you seeing,
Yeah.
or are you expecting? And
Yeah. Well, look, I like to look at payroll. I've got a lot of analogies for payroll, but one of them that I've had for a while is I talk about the fact that if you look at payroll in the context of a race car, right? If a business is the race car and they have all of the best technology in the world, they have a great talent, right? They have a great driver driving that vehicle, best products, best everything, right? but they have it on old or outdated, not efficient tires, right? That car's not going to handle to its full ability. It's not going to pivot. It's not going to turn. And frankly, if you've ever driven a really nice car on really crummy tires, you can feel the difference in that vehicle in real life, right? If you ever try this out, you think about that, right? If again, let's go back to that merger and acquisition, right? As a practitioner, I live that, right? I've came in on a Monday morning and my CFO or controller said to me, "Hey, we bought this thing over the weekend or whatever, and we need you to get these 7 or 8 thousand people onboarded in 10 countries in the next 90 days." Payroll has to make that happen, right? So for that merger and acquisition to be, to fulfill, payroll has to execute against that, right? Or again, think of any major undertaking by the business. Payroll has to be able to flex, be resilient, be scalable, and be able to, move with the vehicle, if you will, similar to the tires on the vehicle, right? And so when you think about the future of what payroll is becoming, right? It's becoming incredibly automated, machine enabled, straight through processing. We're going to get to touchless at some point. The rich data that they're curating is where payroll's real value and power in driving those outcomes lies. Their ability to take that data and their expertise and lend that strategic advisory to the business as they're making these decisions, right? You think about things like, again, mergers and acquisitions or collective bargaining agreements, the ability to provide guidance on how to structure these things from a compliant perspective when it comes to payroll and HR. All of that stuff is incredibly important. It all trickles down to payroll. And so when you think about payroll, again, more analogy, but if you think about it as an iceberg, there's so much going on below the surface of the water, right? Compliance and processing and analytic reviews and just process improvement and all sorts of things that are happening, project management, whenever there's a merger or some sort of major activity. But above the water, all you see is that little bit, right? Hopefully the employee, right? The employee experience part of that you sense and feel is an accurate paycheck and it's on time and compliant and it fits your understanding of what you and your employer agree to. So there's so much that's going on. I really just want people to understand that. And that's where payroll is going to, I think, pivot itself to the future, is getting out of that ticking in time processing world and getting more into becoming more of an analytic curator of insights, but also lending that to the business in the form of strategic advisory, helping them pair it with other data and helping hopefully the business see around the next corner.
One last question.
Mhm.
In your materials for the survey, you say several times that this is a sentiment-based survey.
It is, yeah.
You're taking a sentiment-based approach. What do you mean, first of all? And second of all, why is that different?
Yeah, well, first, like I said, we've spent so much time over the years asking these organizations, what do they have, right? What do you have? What are you missing? What are you going to get next? How many people do you have? Where do you do it? All of that sort of thing. Who do you report to? Finance or HR? And all of that stuff has been great for the various reasons that benchmarking is, and for, like I said, mostly for the purpose of lead generation, figuring out somewhere someone is trying to figure out what they can sell you. This takes a different approach, right? And again, the sentiment part of this is all about understanding. One of the first things we ask payroll practitioners in this study is how are you feeling? And why do you feel that way, right? And more importantly, what is making you feel that way? And we start to dig into all of that, right? And, how are you perceiving technology and your role in the future? How are you being supported by your executives? How are you perceived by other departments, right? We're trying to get down into the why behind why they feel the way they do and make it about the practitioner. This survey is 100% about the practitioner. It's by practitioners, for practitioners, meant to help practitioners. This is not about, there's one question of technology in this. We ask one simple question, and that is, what's the most impactful? I think we asked the top 3 most impactful pieces of technology in your operating model. But otherwise, we're really getting into how they are doing, how they are being treated, how they are being valued, where they're making an impact, what would help them make a bigger impact, and how we can help them help the profession, right? And elongate and curate and keep them around, nurture them, if you will. Because I think we underestimate what it would be like not to have our payroll practitioners for just 1 week. Just 1 week, I think we'd stop the entire economy around the world. So I think we have to look at these folks as the ultimate frontline worker. and we need to respect their rich skill set and hopefully nurture that for the future.
Pete, thanks
Yeah.
very much for stopping by. Really looking forward to hearing what you come up with or what you find out.
Yeah, no, I'd love to come back and share that with you. We're going to be unveiling that at the Payroll org Congress in May, and after that, we'll be getting the report into as many hands as we possibly can. So please come and take it. Give us your opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you, man.
My guest today has been Pete Tiliakos, Principal Analyst and Managing Partner at 3Sixty Insights. And this has been PeopleTech, the podcast of WorkforceAI.news. To keep up with AI technology and HR, visit WorkforceAI.news every day. We're the most trusted source of news in the HR tech industry. Find us at www.workforceai.news. I'm Mark Pfeffer.